Hello, this is Deal Sourcing Segment 3, Finding Deals. So, the question is, how do you find deals? You do it through partners. What you want to be able to do is deliver a succinct and polished investment thesis and introduction to impact investment at your organization. This is going to need to be a targeted message. If you're too general in what you're looking for, when you're talking to a partner, it's going to lead to some skepticism. So when you're looking for these partners, you're utilizing your personal and professional networks to find promising entrepreneurs and businesses. You're targeting service professionals or organizations that cater to entrepreneurs and small businesses. You can also go to larger established funds, incubators, university resources, venture attorneys, accounting firms. I'll talk a little bit about each of these. And you're going to outline your fund, and you're going to talk about your targeted industries and geographies to them. Now remember, for MIINT, you are strongly discouraged from leading deals. So you're looking for deals that already have an open funding round. Let's talk about some of the individual partners. So the first is larger established funds. Like this shark, that's really not fair. They're not like sharks. They're friendlier than that. But larger established funds are consistently evaluating opportunities, and they see lots and lots that are too small or not the right fit for their investment criteria. I would tend to look at funds that are known for an industry focus that fits yours. These can be an absolute gold mine of deals. So the strengths here are that large funds see the high volume of transactions. They can provide a really quick assessment of investment quality. They're going to keep a really long list, and they're going to be watching these deals so that they can invest later on. The investments they're going to refer you to are more likely to have an open round of funding, and it's likely they're going to be open to helping student organizations. Some considerations are the potential investment bias given that fund strategy, which might be different than yours, and of course the investment sizes may still be too large for your sweet spot. Now, approaching this conversation is actually quite easy. I think you can easily network into junior associates at these firms. Often those associates have the job of deal sourcing, so they're looking at hundreds of deals a year, and they're going to more likely to give you a little more time than a senior partner. They're also probably locked away in an office somewhere and haven't spoken to anyone who isn't browbeating them for money in a really long time. So this should be a pretty easy approach. I think they're going to be happy to talk to you, and they're going to have tremendous deals. The next is incubators and accelerators. I know, incubators and accelerators. This is where you say, "Aw." The prevalence of incubators and accelerators has grown significantly over the past years, and provides a great starting point for sourcing deals. Incubators really cast a wide net. They typically have a selection process, which is going to give you some baseline evaluation of the organization and the management team, but not much past the management team. The businesses that are participating in incubator often have access to really, really good mentorship, so that's a strength. I guess the thing to be careful about is that these are going to be very early stage, not quite chicks here, but they'll be very early. But you can pay attention to them, and things can move pretty quickly in those early stages. They may not be currently seeking investment, which may be counterintuitive to you, but a lot of companies don't want to raise money too early, so they get their valuation right. Again, this approach should be fairly easy. Most incubators really want to see their graduates funded, so there should be lots and lots of interest in exposing you, even though you're representing a very small fund or a small amount of money, to the entrepreneurs. So next we'll talk about university resources. I didn't know which of your universities to pick, so I chose a picture of my university, but you'll have to figure out which that is, because I'm not going to tell you. So, university technology transfer centers, small business development centers, entrepreneur clubs. You've all got lots of programs that should provide you with ample opportunity to network with small businesses. This is a natural for alignment of geography and industry and your fund expertise. You should probably get some diversity of stages. I'd be careful with small business development centers in particular, because they usually focus a little less on high growth companies. And then tech transfer can be ultra early without maybe even an entrepreneur involved yet. So those can be places where, if you're not careful, you can kind of waste a lot of time looking at deals that are outside of the sweet spot. I think really that the student businesses are the ones that are really interesting to explore, and worth your time poking around in an entrepreneurship center. So venture attorneys, actually quite good source, believe it or not. Sorry about the image, I had to play some of these images straight. So attorneys who really specialize in early stage deals see a high volume of entrepreneurs. Often they will give out pro bono services, the really good ones, and the established ones will give out pro bono services and close very early stage deals for free, because they're just trying to collect clients for later larger deals. So venture attorneys love to introduce their clients to a funding source. They absolutely love that. That's a huge value add for them. So they're going to love introducing you. It should be great networking, and you should keep that network for the years to come. Here's the thing to be careful about. Lots of people will tell you that they are early stage venture attorneys. Very few are. Usually in a given geography, there's going to be a handful of very active, except for, with the exception, I guess, of New York and the Bay Area. They're really just a small handful of attorneys who focus on doing early stage deals. You want to find out who that small handful is. There's probably even one or two who do the vast majority of them, and you just focus on them. Don't waste time with people who are just starting out of practice, or with a firm that's third runner-up in your area. So we should move on to to the angel groups. Angel groups are a fantastic resource. There's Tonic, particularly Investor Circle. Those come to mind. Investor Circle and Tonic both focus on impact deals, and your school might be able to get you a membership to these groups, and if you get the membership, then you get access to their deal flow. And in addition, you probably have some local angel groups in town that see deals as well. Investor Circle has been a great resource for the Wharton Group. I know, I've been a member for a long time, and they have hundreds and hundreds of deals coming through their pipeline all the time, and it's a great place to go hunting and see a bunch of deals. I think in closing, you should really feel fairly confident about finding some good deals. Your university is a strong brand. That's why you're in the MIINT. That reflects well on you as a student, a group, or club, whether you're doing this for course credit or not. And I think you're going to find that people really want to work with you and help you. Choosing among all those deals is another story. That's hard, but I think you should feel. Okay, great. So let's hear some words from our guests about where they find great deals. For all three of you, really, is how you get them. I mean, the people often ask, and I found this actually in fundraising, was the most, is people who aren't familiar with working in the VC industry would say, like, well, where do you get all these deals? You say a typical investor, a VC investor, looks at 100 deals to do one, or maybe more, Nancy. So where do you find all of those? How could So there are a lot of industries where you don't look quite at that kind of volume in order to do deals. So and usually you can't just sit back and wait for the very best deals to get thrown over the transom of the office. Or maybe you do, Nancy. I'm not. If you guys can just stay there all day and not have to just let them come to you, do you just hang out a shingle with your name on it? First to you, Nancy.
Yeah, deal flow is really the lifeblood of our business, because you do need a lot to choose from in order to kind of assemble a portfolio that has diversity and a lot of depth to it. So it's both inbound and outbound. We certainly get a lot of deals over the transom. I probably get a few deals a day that way, and my colleagues the same. Those are, well, I'm not going to say they're not valuable. They're not as high quality usually when you just get them through an email or so. Usually, if there's someone that introduces you to a company that you know and respect, it has a better shot of kind of making it through the first screen. In terms of the way we source deals, rather, in addition to the ones that come over the transom, we spend a lot of time working our network. I mean, some of the best referrals that we've gotten have been from entrepreneurs in our existing portfolio companies that know of a certain person that's off doing a new company, or the other venture capitalists on the board has a new investment that they want to tell us about. So that network effect is very critical to getting leads, and it's a very people-oriented business. And then I would say the third dimension would be we go out and we're very we go to conferences, we speak, we go to workshops, seminars, because there's always someone in the audience that will hear us and then maybe have a great idea and come up and talk to us afterwards. So it helps get our name out there. So, and I think most venture capitalists do this. I mean, you can't just assume that all the deals that come to you are the ones that you should be doing. So it's definitely a mix.
Yeah. And where do you guys go? Where have you hung out a sign that says money here, or?
Yeah. So we kind of pursue three. Just to take a step back, I think something that's a challenge and interesting about doing it from a student-based fund at a university is that you have a certain time cycle that everyone has to be involved, and you can't invest over the summer. So we have an initial kind of national call for business plans, which we ask all our fund members to send out to their networks. And I think an advantage of having almost 40 members of our fund, which sometimes can be difficult to manage, is that you suddenly have 40 professional networks. So we source a lot of deals through that. We also try to cultivate relationships with local incubators and accelerators in different cities. And finally, we're also a member of an investor circle, which is kind of an early stage angel investing network. So that's another point. I think one more thing I'd like to say, what's quite interesting is that because for us it's also a really rich educational experience, the more deals are great. And so maybe where a more experienced VC would kind of immediately see a deal and just be like, no, that's no good. There is value in, especially new students, looking at what a bad business plan looks like, or it's like being able to articulate why that's not going to work. So I think that we usually screen between 150 and 200 deals and only end up making 1 or 2 investments. But again, that's kind of part of the learning process for us. So there's actually value in that.
What about you, Josh? Where do they come from, all those deals?
They come from a variety of places. So to Owen's earlier point, we have a call for business plans. It's probably not as well articulated or sent out as early historically as Michigan have done. So that's something that we're looking to improve upon a bit. And then there's also we work with Investor Circle, and then it's up to the members. And for good reasons. I think it's more difficult to get an entrepreneur's attention as a student than it is as Nancy, as founding partner of a very successful fund. But so I think that part of the process is a really interesting part of the learning experience. And also there's a direct correlation, like it's an experiential opportunity. There's a direct correlation, I think, between the people who get the most out of it and those who have gone and put the yards in, walking through their own professional network, and then also taking advantage of the fact they're at the university, the fact that they've worked out where the accelerators are, where the hubs are, and sort of the angel groups that look at this space and try to find businesses through that.
So, Josh, just to follow up on that, maybe some hints to students or some tips for how to when you don't have a big ticket to invest.
Mm-hmm.
How might you approach potential partners? And this isn't not approaching the entrepreneurs, but when you're asking to co-invest, to ride along, I know that last year you co-invested with Andreessen Horowitz in a deal, which is fantastic. You know, how have you found it successful to get into a deal where you're not leading and where you are a much smaller piece of less than 10% of a round?
Yeah, I think we touched on a few of these things a moment ago that I think are pretty relevant in this instance.
Yeah.
But it's important to be able to articulate your value proposition. And so, you know, we're not Andreessen Horowitz, but what we do have is, you know, we've got the Wharton brand. We've got the fact that to we receive this investment, you've participated in a competition where some of the, you know, most dedicated and brightest business students around the country have actively sought one investment. And so at the end of the process, there is a winner. And that's a valuable story to have when they're talking about portfolio companies. There's also, when you're working with angel groups, there's sort of tie-ins to the value that you can give to their other operations that come from your connections to the university. So shamelessly plugging your institution's brand, I think, is important. And especially when you're first getting started. You know, if you're as established as the team at Ross are, I think then you've got a you know, people know the Michigan has been doing this for years. But when you're getting started, I think the university name will be probably one of the more valuable things that you have to use and abuse.
And what should you do? And what should you not do? What when you're approaching potential partners? So let's say other firms or a VC lawyer or, you know, an incubator where you might be looking for deals. Anything you found that's woefully bad?
Look, I think it's important. It's a difficult process to articulate the business school, the impact investing competition that we're all participating in. The immediate value of that, or the accessibility of funds through that process, isn't clear. The timeline doesn't necessarily match up with what people are doing, and it's not natural to the industry or industry participants that, oh wait, like, you have some money, but you only have some money if you win and it's in March. Like, that doesn't really help people. So sort of taking the focus away from that and to your organization as a whole, and like what you can bring, I think, is probably pretty important.
Okay. And Nancy, if you think about what the students are trying to do here, which is, you know, compete for their deal to win an investment, many of the schools participating will have never done this before, and they're going to be going out to look for deals, and, you know, hopefully they won't all call you at the same time to see what you're about to invest in. So, the question is, when they're approaching partners or potential partners and saying, hey, we'd love to co-invest in some of your better deals or whatever, what should they do to be relevant?
Well, I think you always have to lead with what your value add is, and just because you're not, you know, a Sand Hill Road fund doesn't mean you can't add your own unique value. And you know, we had to build up the kind of approach that we would bring to a company in terms of helping it and our value add over several years. But I think what we're hearing in this dialogue is that university-based funds, you know, they could help you find some experts by virtue of the fact that they're in a university, and they can help you perhaps find some free labor to help you kind of analyze a certain business model or market you're going to go after. I mean, I think that if I were in a deal and people came to me saying they wanted to invest and they could help with things like that, that would make me say, yeah, they're small and I've never worked with them before, but gee, they're leading with some really interesting angles that I think will be helpful to the syndicate and to the company. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Give people examples of how, even though you're small, you're mighty.
Yeah, small and mighty. I like that. So, I mean, thinking that, yeah, when you were first starting with, I mean, your first fund, 75. Well, I guess it depends on what kind of deals. Were you leading all those deals when in Fund 1?
No, we didn't lead all of them, and we weren't big enough to lead some of the deals. And so we were in this position of having to tell people why they should take our money and why they would be happy.
Yeah. So, I think that's, I'm just going to follow up this one point. I think that it's perhaps not obvious to beginning investors that one might have to convince someone to take their money. So, it's always been my opinion that in general you have to convince the better deals to take your money, and if you don't have to do any convincing, you might want to think about why that is. So, Nancy, is there a fair amount? I mean, do you think it's true that you have competed the hardest for the best deals, or maybe not? I mean, do the best deals have such a natural fit with your fund that you don't have to compete quite as hard with other funds?
It goes both ways. You definitely there are the hot deals that you need to compete for, and certainly even back then Tesla, there were a lot of people that the company was talking to, and there were some very famous firms involved, and we were just starting out. So that was definitely a competitive situation where we really had to show our expertise and how we were going to help the company, and the good news is that they loved our mission, and so they were very, we were ultimately successful. But back then we didn't know that Tesla would be the success it became. So but it was hot. Now on the other end of the spectrum, a company like Revolution Foods that probably a lot of people listening have heard of, which serves healthy lunches to low-income school children.
Fabulous company, yeah.
Yeah, now serves, I think we serve over 200,000 meals a day now. But when we invested in them, we were the only investor. I mean, it was a seed investment. Kristen and Kirsten had just graduated, were just graduating from Haas, and frankly, they couldn't really get an investment from a traditional investor, or even, and back then, impact investing, there weren't that many players. So we went it alone there, and that's certainly, you feel much more exposed in those situations, but you start with a smaller amount of money so that you're not putting a huge amount of your fund at risk, and then the hope is that you get some milestones accomplished, and then you bring in other investors, and that's exactly what happened with that company. But I think that's a fabulous company and doing great financially, as well as just transforming young people's lunches in a good way. And yet that was one that nobody competed for. I mean, we were out there all by ourselves.
Well, which is an part of what I take away from that is you can still find something and see something that no one else sees, right? I mean, that's value that no one else has found. And I don't know, I think it's one of the most exciting things about being in the business, frankly.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's great to. It is also awesome that you won the Tesla deal. So I don't know, between the two of them, they're both pretty sweet.
Thank you.